Hello there. I'm Dr. Mike Cosgrave. I'm coordinator for the postgraduate programs in the Department of Digital Humanities here in UCC. And I teach quite a few modules. And what I'm doing here is recording introductions to some of them, particularly the ones that I teach in first semester. And what I wanted to talk about here is the two game-related courses that I teach in first semester, DH6007, Model Simulations and Games, and DH6026, Principles of Game Design. And I'm doing a common introduction to the two of these so that you understand the similarities and the differences between the two modules. They're both about games. And originally, DH6007, Model Simulations and Games, goes back to teaching that I did as long ago as 2008 in undergraduate courses on military history. My approach to games is that I look at games as models, simulations of complex systems. Building a game, an effective game model, requires you to understand the system that you're building a model of. And in many cases, it can help you clarify your thinking and your understanding of what you're trying to build a model of. And it can be a learning experience. So I am interested in a wide variety of games: card, collectible card, board, tabletop role-playing, Model UN style simulations, casual games. I am not massively interested in AAA console games that involve lots of shooting and blowing up and respawning, because there's much more to games than that. And in fact, Model Simulations and Games as a course is essentially a tour of all the different types of gaming. It's a broad survey of the history of gaming, how far back gaming in its modern forms goes. It looks at particularly the key role of the military in developing serious games since about 1800, von Kriegsspiel, and the use of games by the military as a tool for research and exploring alternatives and for training. But out of that then, a whole range of other things have come. Business does a whole range of business games for learning with stuff. Obviously, the phenomenon of the modern tabletop role-playing game spun off from medieval war games in an interesting way, which we'll talk about at some point in time, and we'll look at the phenomenon of tabletop role-playing games and also how that then has developed into online, huge, massively multiplayer online role-playing games and the communities of people that form around that, which is an interesting topic. We're also going to look at casual gaming, which is very important. It's a huge center of the market. Beginning with things like Farmville on Facebook, and then exploding throughout the world, particularly with the development of mobile devices and gaming on mobile devices. It's a huge part of the gaming scene now. We're going to look at gamification in learning and in business and in shopping. You have a club card for whatever supermarket that you shop in. You get points. They send you points. They reward you. You're being gamed. We're going to look at issues like, we're going to look at women and minorities in gaming, which is a contentious enough issue. For a long time, gaming has been seen, particularly the big name, digital gaming, has been seen to be exclusively a male preserve. And there are problems with the representation of women and the participation of women and minorities in game design and in the gaming industry. And that's still a hot button topic, and it's still a problem, and it's one that we're going to look at and look at some of the background to that. So we're going to, and if we get to it, we'll look at things like game criticism, and we'll look at things like the narratology and ludology debate. But basically, Model Simulations and Games, DH6007, is a survey of the gaming scene. It's a tour around the gaming world. And the assessment for that is based on the responses to your weekly discussion prompts, my weekly discussion prompts, your responses to them, your participation in the discussion. 10% for the first 4 weeks, 20% for the next 4 weeks, and 30% for the final 4 weeks. And then that leaves me 40% to look at the final product, which is an essay, but with a difference. It's an essay that's going to be presented as a game. using a tool called Twine, which is basically a tool which allows you to write one of those branching pathway, choose your own adventure game style things. Any of you that played Final Fantasy game books when you were younger will understand what this is and how it works. And we'll explain how it works. It's not a very complicated tool. Essentially, it's a hypertext. So it's like a network. And it's based on the same technology that drives the web, with some bells and whistles, which allows you to do branching pathway adventures. So every one of those will be different because all of you will have different interests in gaming. So everyone's game essay will have a different emphasis on it, but it will it will get around all the terrain, but in maybe different pathways, which will be interesting to see the diversity of approaches there. 6026, Principles of Game Design, on the other hand, is a game design course. The assessment is broadly similar, discussion, participation week by week, and a final game design document, which is an outline design, not a finished design, an outline proposal for a game. And in order to get there, we will therefore look at what a game is, how a game is a model of a system. We'll look at game studies and game criticism in more detail in this one because it's important to criticize games. And then we're going to look at design approaches and methodologies. How do you set about designing a game? What are the methodologies for designing a game? And we'll step through some of the sequences. World building. How do you build a game world? How do you establish the frame for the game? We'll look on narrative in games. How does the game move along? What is the story? Characters. How do you build a character in a game? What is necessary for the character? How much do you need the character to have? What are the characters in your game anyway? What are the challenges they meet? And then that will logically lead us into having created a world and put some characters in it. We will then look at our typical model, the hero's journey in gaming. How somebody starts off at the beginning with a challenge, how they move through the different phases. What is the journey that your character undertakes till they reach the end? What are the pathways and options that they can follow? And how that will bring them then to the end of the game. We will therefore look, obviously, in terms of the steps through that journey, at game mechanics. What are the various different things that you can do to take, storytelling elements and model them in an effective way in a game? And there's all sorts of ways out there. It's not just rolling the dice anymore. There's card-driven games. There's a whole variety of interactions between dice and card and various random forms and all sorts of other clever tricks that game designers have come up with. And we'll look at some of them to see if you can fit them into a concept for a game design on a topic that is of interest to you. So two complementary but quite different courses. And certainly the principles of game design leads logically on to some of the modules that I teach in the second semester after Christmas, where I do a more detailed game design course and also teach a course on game user research, which is about how people test games, which is a set of skills that are generally applicable to all sorts of user testing actually. But the focus is on games. So the four modules together do constitute a fairly hefty chunk of game stuff within the master's program and the postgrad dip. And they are, above all, fun. And it may be mandatory for you to watch some videos of gameplay and even play some games. And we may even whip up a little in-class D&D group, and so that you can immerse yourself in that and see how it goes. And I have a list of games that are interesting and different, and not your average Monopoly. This is not your average Monopoly game. This is out there and different and fun, and hopefully we will enjoy doing it. And at the end, you will have, something that will be interesting that you have produced, which will require a certain amount of digital skill to produce, and a certain amount of thinking about how digital design works in order to produce something. So I hope you'll enjoy those between here and Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you.